The discussion about the morality and legality of Maduro's capture really struck me. I have to share with you this feeling of unreality about what's happening. I have to say right away that I am a very, and, according to my wife, overly peaceful person. It's hard to get me angry. It takes me a long time to reach the point where I want to grab a board and hit my conversation partner over the head. But I admit, I've had that feeling before. Me too. I never initiate what is called physical coercion, but like any peaceful person, I explode when someone tries to physically force someone else to do something. Right next to me, especially if it's about my family, which makes sense, right? Why am I saying this? I want to emphasize that by all outward signs, I don't seem to be an aggressor. And in the vast majority of cases, aggression causes me to feel repulsed. That's me. Before we start discussing aggressive acts, their morality, their purposefulness, and their appropriateness, I wanted to state my position. From my point of view, any act by itself cannot be explained. And if you want to understand, try to figure out the cause and effect relationships. I'll give you an example. My grandson was in the 4th or 5th grade at that time. I told this story once, but I apologize. I'll repeat it, and then I'll add a couple more things afterward. He was in 4th or 5th grade during school lessons around 11 or 12 o'clock. I can't recall exactly. When my daughter called to say she was being summoned to the school because he pushed or hit someone or something similar. And she calls me and says that this is the result of your influence, so you go and deal with it, so I go. The vice principal explains to me that Nick pushed someone. Naturally, I ask why, and they explain to me that it doesn't matter why, what matters is that he pushed. For a while, we both just look at each other, like sheep staring at a new gate. Then I ask them to call in the one who did wrong. I try once again to find out, this time from my grandson, why he did it. And again, in a slightly irritated voice, they tell me that only good boys and girls study at their school, peaceful ones, and that they don't push each other. I take Nick, who has been told that he is punished and now has to go home. In my opinion, he was absolutely thrilled about being punished like that. But in the car, just in case, he starts whining that he won't do it again. And he knows what will happen, or rather, he knows that I know what he'll do, but just in case. So there he is, whining. I quickly find out that this boy, that very boy, likes to run up from behind and suddenly push both boys and girls in the back. He gets really happy when someone falls face first into the dirt. This is the second time Nick has pushed him and he fell. And when it happened this time, the first time he laughed along with that boy, but the second time he really didn't like it, so he pushed him back. Well, that's exactly what the teacher saw. And then, things started rolling from there. I always tell Niku, never respond in kind, I won't mention names or anything, and all those other little complaints. So I say, good job. So, if someone deliberately pushes you or says something bad about your mom, I guess, without really explaining, I was passing on the experience of what happened to me in Soviet school. Then you don't push back, I say to the American schoolboy with the hot blood of my Georgian wife. Make a fist. I show the subtitles like this, a fist. He looks at me attentively, also makes a fist. I say tighter and try to hit the one who pushed you, not anyone else, just the one who pushed you. Yeah, or if he said something nasty about any of your relatives or friends. Right in the spot where the eye ends and the nose begins. Nick can't stand it. Then I'll get punished for it, I reasonably say. But haven't you already been punished? Silence. And then what? Asks my older American grandson. Then I say, I'm not him, the one who pushed you. No one else will push you anymore. I don't know what you took away from this story, but Nicholas, he took something away from it because he later told me about it. My daughter, his mother, was never called to school, unlike others, so no. By the way, now he is an Orthodox Jew, which means he wears a kippah and, as he says, all those tzitzit. And I think that if anyone speaks disrespectfully about his God, he will most likely beat them up. So, That's me. The point is, pushing someone is different from punching them in the face. After you or someone close to you has been pushed and hit and called names, those are completely different things. Shooting someone is horrible and taboo, right? Some people never keep a gun at home because they're scared by the very thought of harming another person, a human being. And here's an example. My conversation, by the way, also with my granddaughter, but this time she's 13, we're driving, and I'm taking her. She skates, she goes figure skating, so I'm taking her there. And I say, so, you have to talk about something smart. I say, listen, what would you do if someone tried to break into your house at night, breaking down the front door? My granddaughter asks, what should you do? Call the police. I reply, do you know the average police response time for a call, Fiona? She was named after either a singer or a princess from a cartoon. So AI looks it up and says, in our neighborhood, it's 6 minutes. And how long, I say, would it take a burglar to break down the door and get to your parents' bedroom? After a moment of silence, Fiona says, 2 minutes. We both stay quiet, then she continues, what should we do? But think for yourself, I suggest. Yeah, it would be good to have a gun, says my red-haired granddaughter. And what would you do with a gun? You should never have a gun at home, her mother said. But if robbers broke in, what would you do? In a completely uncertain voice and glancing at me sideways, Fiona says, shoot. How many times and where, I persist. It was a timid question. Then Fiona thinks for a moment. I think, all the bullets we have and in the stomach. I've become kind of bloodthirsty lately. So I think that children are not as stupid as they seem to us after spending a long time with them. Well, I'll stop bothering you now. Let's discuss Maduro, Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, and the Chinese Revolution in the world. They say order has been established for us. Stop, 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 order. I think you call this mess order, but who established it? They tell me the United Nations established it. Yeah, I say. The United Nations, which was created to prevent wars, that very same United Nations. And how did they stop 100 wars after the end of World War II? Yeah, or maybe 98, maybe 92. I want to inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that after 1945, there have been 250 wars in the world. Not minor conflicts, wars. You can read the definition of war in the encyclopedia. In 2023, for example, there were 59 wars going on at the same time. Well, let's say, leave it. Well, it should be. At the end of the 1940s, there was the Korean campaign. In the early 1950s, the Algerian, the Vietnamese, the Arab-Israeli, the Indo-Pakistani, well, there weren't any Indo-Pakistani ones then, the Afghan, and the Latin American. What the United Nations established as a rule of conduct or a rule for relations between countries looks incredibly beautiful on paper and in speeches from the podium, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work at all. The United States' attempts to intervene and stop conflicts usually led to the exact opposite result. For example, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. Some interventions were successful. Yes, there were such cases. They stopped ethnic cleansing in the Balkans. They stopped the Iraqi occupation of Kuwait. By the way, the history there is also terribly complicated. Grenada, Panama, Haiti. Some local places are often described as interventions that stopped massacres. The United Nations, in turn, helped resolve conflicts. Yes, it did help, but only if major countries weren't involved. Well, from medium to large ones for big and powerful countries. The law, of course, is written, yes, but no one enforces it because no one can force the USSR, well, Russia in this case, China, England, the United States of America, and others, to comply. Big countries still do whatever they want, and a few simply had the right to veto in the Security Council. They couldn't even be bothered. They just used their veto, and that was it. So there are those who might be forced to obey the law, and there are those who absolutely couldn't care less about the law. No one even tries. No one even tries to talk to them. So this whole law, these rules, it's just nonsense. Do you like this kind of legislation where you are obligated, but the healthy, strong, heavily armed people do whatever they want? Well, I don't really like it. Then drugs are being brought into my country, and I can't persuade the country they're coming from to work together to stop them. Moreover, I find out that the neighbors are involved and are profiting from the fact that young people are dying in my country. The neighbors have gathered over there. Nearly all my enemies are putting missiles there that can quickly strike my cities, raising the risk and destruction for residents. So yes, in addition to that, the help from this neighbor allows my main enemy to steal about $600 billion from my people every year. So, and this is being done in a way that's completely opposite to our agreement. We agreed on something, but they do the exact opposite and steal, and I can't do anything about it. I can't change it unless I stop the neighbor who's helping them. I've told this neighbor and the enemies 100 times that we need to go back to honest trade. Well, they quietly laugh at me, but at the same time they promise that everything will be fixed very soon. Very soon I see my country, the population, how we are heading toward bankruptcy and a sharp decline in the standard of living. And the laws written by this very United Nations forbid me from making corrections. Well, here I am, either illegally independent or lawlessly independent by force. If I obey the laws, my children will go from prosperity to poverty. A country can be physically captured by enemies or commercially taken over by enemies, and its people will de facto become slaves. Or I put my Marines on ships, my special forces on planes and helicopters, and with a lightning-fast operation, I kidnap the leader of a neighboring country who is also a drug dealer, a mass murderer, a sadist, and has illegally seized power. That doesn't give me a reason to interfere in their affairs. It's just a description. So Nicolas Maduro, whom we kidnapped from a bunker on a military base that is from Venezuela, someone probably wants to say, but what about international law? To which I would reply, when it comes to the well-being of my children and grandchildren, with your international or maybe people's or even planetary, whatever kind of laws, wipe yourself with them or use them however you like, whatever suits you best. And somewhere in another country, in another hemisphere, there are people living. At some point, they decided to split into two groups, and each got its own territory. On the left, they call themselves Russians and Ukrainians, and the place is called Russia. On the right, Russians and Ukrainians call themselves Ukraine. One group is more cunning, let's say half of them, or maybe three-quarters, it doesn't matter, but they're more farsighted. Yes, one was preparing for defense and wars while the other wasn't, hoping for luck and some kind of magical protection, which their leader, named Kuchma, convinced the whole country to believe in. They thought someone owed them, maybe the British, Americans, Turks, or Israelis, who knows. They were also afraid of getting into trouble. This very part, which calls itself Ukraine, started inviting uncles and aunts with nuclear missiles onto its territory, and thinking that then they'd be under an umbrella and wouldn't need to organize an army or defense or anything else. They would just be busy robbing their own people while someone else would protect them, simply because they let those uncles and aunts onto their territory. Russians, or rather Russia, really didn't like that. And it warned Ukraine, meaning the other half of its own country, that it would attack and, well, wouldn't allow it. That's the whole thing. Yes, Ukraine still didn't build an army or produce anything military, thinking it was all just talk, and was negotiating about placing missiles aimed at, Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then Russia attacked, and Ukraine started demanding money and weapons from Europe and America, claiming that it, Ukraine, was protecting us, meaning the whole world. Throughout this war, the people of Ukraine, their media, and politicians have been spreading slander in a staged, baseless way. They insulted America and Americans for not giving them enough, even though Americans themselves have money and weapons, but they won't give them to us. Those bastards. Society in Ukraine was brought to such a level of hatred toward America because they gave too little and didn't save them.
What?
And also because America doesn't take revenge on Russia for their sacrifice and actually talks to the murderers.
What? No.
Probably in the territory of Ukraine, not a single media outlet and not a single politician who hasn't said at least 100 times in the last 10 minutes how much he hates America. What do you think if I tell this story to my grandchildren? I already have 5 of them. They'll be able to decide what to do. Send, give, donate. Well, considering we have 38 trillion in debt, honor has arisen because of helping other countries. Or the children will say, and after all, the truth will be spoken with terrifying force. They'll probably say that. And why should we care what's happening over there anyway? Where are these places you're talking about? Are they on our planet or maybe on some other one, on a different one? I don't know what they'll say. I'll have to ask them. Now, the very last question. There's a group of people, they're called jihadists, who asks God every day, 5 times a day, to grant them a long life. No, they ask God to kill us in the United States. No, one of them asks God to kill us. They raise their youth to hate us. They fund the creation of terror groups to kill us, to blow us up. They break into villages where non-Islamists live and kill people. Last time, 1,200 people were attacked. 300 were taken captive with some killed, raped, and others tortured. And the only reason they can't destroy us is because they don't have the kind of weapons that could do it. And suddenly we find out that our enemies have obtained such a weapon. And right now, we're in a situation where they could kill 10, 20 million of our citizens. And we know that this is true, and we know the places where this weapon is being made. It's almost ready. Almost ready. Yes, every time we talk to them about this, we ask, guys, what are you doing? And with, what are you mistaken about? No. What are you talking about? No. If you ask where, no, you can't enter. No, absolutely not, and 5 times a day. Boom, on their knees. And death to America, Satan, Shaitan, who knows? And according to United Nations rules, we can't send in the army there, nor can we send commandos. And everything they have is deep underground. It's almost ready. So what should we do? Act within international law and go extinct, or forget all the stupid, useless rules, attack, bomb, destroy, and kill while we're at it? I know exactly what my grandchildren would say because they haven't learned political correctness yet. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? So, my dear liberal idiots without a hand? No, don't give me your nonsense about high morals. Just write your opinion. What do you think about all these matters? Yes, no, yes, until next time.